Hey everybody, Bryce Koon here with the Crowded Booth, and opening day is just 9 days away. We're really excited for it, and as you know on this channel, we love the Atlanta Braves, the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves. We'll be talking about opening day roster projections and who Ralph and I think might be a breakout candidate for the pitcher and for the hitter. All that and more here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Hey everybody, my name is Bryce Koon. This is Ralph Leary Ralph, I'm pointing the wrong side. On this side of me, and hey, we're talking a little bit of baseball today. We've got a great week of sports coming up. Great 2 weeks of sports coming up. Opening day is not this weekend, but next weekend. If you're listening on the radio, we appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 250 subscribers. Ralph will be Venmoing a fan of choice $2.50. Whoever gets that 250th subscriber number. Ralph, how you doing today, sir?
Man, it's been a long day. Actually, the past 2 days have been kind of long, but it's a good day so far.
It's a good day. It's a Tuesday, and we're excited to be talking a little bit of Braves baseball. Ralph, listen, no team has won consecutive World Series since the Yankees won 3 straight beginning in 1998. But the Braves, we feel like, are equipped, even after everything that happened over the past couple weeks, to try to make that next run. We're going to be talking about our opening day roster projections, what they look like. Let's start off, Ralph, with a little bit of pitching. I'll let you want to go first? You want to dive first into the pitching, and we'll go rotation first?
I mean, just our starting day rotation, right? So,
well, we'll say opening day rotation. Starter.
Yeah,
who's your opening day starter?
I think it's obvious. It's going to be Max Reid. I mean, there's no one else you put out there right now because he's your heart and soul of the rotation right now.
Yeah, heart and soul of the rotation. And Charlie, I guess, he's looking great. But you know, Charlie, they're 1A, 1B, really. When you
right.
Get down
I
to
mean, and Charlie's done so many things in his career that it stacks up every day. But Freed's a guy that's been here for the longest. I feel like he's the ace. You think of that. Just go back to Game 6 of the World Series. You needed a bulldog attitude out of Max Fried. He comes out there and he shoved 6 innings. Doesn't strike out a lot of people, but when he does,
almost broke his ankle.
Got pissed off, walked out there and said, "It's my game." And when he got out of the 6th inning, he walked at Brian Sticker and said, "I'm done," because that man had put all his effort into those 6 innings.
Yeah, he threw his hardest pitch ever recorded, I think, at the major league level, and struck out
98.9 or something.
Oh my gosh,
he was working it, but
ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I followed Fried. I got Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson, just the 3 guys that have been kind of consistent the past year. Throughout the playoffs were consistent. You follow behind, probably going to be either Kyle Wright, Tucker Davidson, Oscar Noah, those guys, just because Braves might. I think you told me a minute ago the Braves are looking for a 6-man rotation to start the season off, which means they're fighting for that 5th spot. So these guys are going to be working really hard and trying to fight for that spot. I know Kyle Wright looked extremely well in the playoffs last year. Oscar Noah had a great summer last year, and Tucker Davidson, man, dude works hard. I mean, he's a hardworking guy. He pitched in his first playoff appearance in his entire career was Game 4 of the World Series. I mean, what do you expect him to do? Go out there and throw a no-hitter? I mean, that's a hard thing to ask. So Tucker Davidson's gonna be. I'm looking forward to hopefully he has a great season this year. Even Kyle Mueller, who pitched extremely well when he came in last year.
You see Max Fried right there in the Friday Night Reds. Ralph, I'm going Max Fried, obviously, as you said, opening day starter. And I like what you talked about because we did mention it before. It looks like they're going to go with that 6-man rotation. In years prior, we've been talking about a 4-man rotation because usually you had an off day sprinkled in a couple of there. I'm going Fried, Morton, Ian Anderson. Obviously, Ralph, those are your big 3. And then, I'm going Enoa, Davidson, and Kyle Wright. I think Kyle Wright, this is kind of a make or break year for him in a weird way. He has performed very good in postseason play. Regular season play, it's kind of been just up and down. He's got it's over 6 ERA, but manager Brian Snitker said last week to the media that Enoa and Wright likely have an edge in the race for the 4 and 5 starts. That's why I got Wright penciled in that 6th spot. Ralph, we often forget that Huascar Ynoa was the best pitcher on the staff before he decided to punch a wall.
Yeah.
Are you excited to see him be back in the fold? Because kid's got electric stuff. He came back at the end, but I think he was still trying to get 100%.
Yeah, I think they rushed him back a little too soon. I know that's a hard injury to come back from. He was angry, obviously. He punched the bench, I'm pretty sure, or hit the wall behind the bench. But either way, not a really good outcome for the Braves at that point. You say the best pitcher on the staff. He also was one of the best hitting pitchers in baseball with hit 2 home runs. One was being a grand slam.
We forget about that.
Yeah, the Braves were a weird team in the middle of summer. Obviously, before they got hot, they were just kind of like, we don't know if the playoffs are possible this year. Let's just go have fun. Who else knows on him a grand slam? Who knows what happens next? So, I hope he goes back, and I hope he's about his midsummer form because that's where he was the best. He had control with his fastball, his breaking ball pitches. Everything was working for him, honestly. And I feel like when we first saw him, he was trying to throw as hard as he could. When he realized he had control, he turned it up a little bit and got really good. So hopefully he's back to that form again, so we can see how dominant he can actually be.
Yeah, listen, Huascar, his stuff. I don't even remember his devastating changeup that he had. I got to get another picture of him in the Friday Night Reds. Probably some of my favorite jerseys that Atlanta sports out there. But you see what Noah does. You saw what he did last year. Really carried this pitching staff throughout the early portion of the season, and then he had the broken hand. He kind of leveled out the staff until Max Fried got back healthy after a couple of nagging injuries in the early portions of the season. But if this is a rotation, I feel confident with. When you got a guy like we see right here in Huascar, know what he can do. We know what Kyle Wright's potential is. We also have seen it in action with some of the stuff they've been able to do. And then we don't talk enough about, I guess, in the fact of, what those big three have done. I mean, when you have a big three in Max Fried, we talked about him. We talked about Charlie Morton rehabbing, coming back from injury. But Ian Anderson has a devastating changeup. He's coming into his own. He's still very, very young. This is an exciting big three, and then I think you get to feel comfortable when you have guys like, Tucker Davidson, you said, who obviously has worked hard and has been very, very impressive. I think it's going to be great. And remember, there's an expanded 28-man roster for the month of April that's going to allow. Essentially, they did this to allow for starters not have to go as deep into games since kind of the shortened spring training. Ralph, I'm not going to lie. I'm excited. I think that this rotation has a really good makeup to it. And Noah, Davidson, and Wright, those are 2 and 3 guys that can be big contributors.
Bryce, I feel dumb. I really do. And
Go ahead.
You're going to feel dumb after this too. We're forgetting someone very special.
Who's this?
Mike Soroka, who is still rehabbing. And when he's back healthy, you talk about another guy who could be fighting for another spot, maybe that 4th spot, because that dude was the number 1 pitcher on the staff 3 years ago. So getting Soroka back healthy would be a huge thing for the Braves, just to add another arm in there who can just go out there and be confident to go 6 to 7 innings every night. So Mike Soroka's in there fighting for a spot when he gets healthy. Hopefully he's healthy this year because, man, that 2019 Mike Soroka was basically one of the best pitchers we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, he was devastating. And there's been reports that they just kind of let him do his own thing. They're not going to rush him back. Obviously, with the guys that we mentioned, it could be a situation where you see him make a couple starts toward the end of the season, and then maybe 2023 is when he can, compete for an opening day opportunity or opening day roster opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, this will be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Ralph, bullpen. We already had a great bullpen, and now we just said we're gonna add Colin McHugh, who's been one of the more underrated elite relievers in baseball over the past couple of years, and then we just added the Dodgers' all-time saves leader in Kenley Jansen, who's excited to be a Brave. A couple other names in there. Give me let's go with 9 guys. I'll go first this time. I'm going Kenley Jansen as the closer. We've already kind of established that'll be something. Colin McHugh, Tyler Matzik, Will Smith, AJ Minter, Luke Jackson. Yes, that person on Twitter that commented said Luke Jackson needs to go and that he'll be happy. Well, sorry, you're not going to be happy. Darren O'Day, I think, is going to get a look because, Ralph, he's one of those guys that if he's healthy, that arm slot, it's weird. It's a change of pace. He's going to be in there. Sean Newcomb, I'm going to throw that name out there, and the only reason why is because I don't know if Sean Newcomb's place is going to be in Atlanta going ahead, but when the May 1st waiver opportunities come around, Sean Newcomb has no more options. And what that means to viewers, and if you don't know what that means, maybe you're a casual listener, Sean Newcomb has no more options. This is it for him. If they want to send him back down to AAA, they've got to pass him through the waiver wire for all of the teams to take a chance on him. So I think Atlanta's going to take a long look at him in the month of April. He might get some long relief opportunities, some high leverage situations. We'll see. And then Ralph, Tyler Thornburg is another one. He's a guy they picked up as a non-roster invitee, and he's been very, very good. He's pitched an inning and 2/3 of scoreless relief against Toronto in spring training. These are guys with no options, and I kind of put on the outsides looking in of those, and the only reason is because they can still spend time in the minors. Spencer Strider and Kyle Mueller, those two guys, their future is in Atlanta, I feel like. How do you agree, disagree? Where are you thinking about kind of the relievers?
I completely agree with everything in there. Honestly, the bullpen's pretty much set up. Honestly, I felt for next year, and for the sheer fact that they had, the bullpen's, if not as good as it was last year, better. Because adding Kenley Jansen, Colin McHugh, that's two big names that have been dominant in the playoffs and over time for the past few years. I know there's one name in the minors that I feel like could be coming. Like you mentioned, Spencer Strider, obviously, but Tukey Toussaint can come back and he can pitch out of the bullpen. Even Jacob Webb. I know a lot of people don't like Jacob Webb, but his playoff performance this past year was impressive.
And he's got great stuff too. It was just command.
And I think he's worked on command very a lot, honestly, in the offseason. I think he's gotten better. There's a few names you'll see coming in and out of this, out of the bullpen a lot this year. I mean, the bullpen's never the same all year long. No one keeps that same bullpen. A few guys maybe get injured and have maybe an off month. So you'll see guys kind of transition out, just play around with a few things, obviously.
Listen, the bullpen's a revolving door. Whatever you roll in day one, it could look different. We know that, especially the past couple of seasons. Something interesting, Luke Jackson did miss a week of camp with some forearm tightness. I think if the righty Jackson's not in there, that's where you could see a guy like Spencer Strider with his triple-digit fastball that he can throw. And going back to the Sean Newcomb conversation, that someone is bound to put in the conversation or the comments below, well, he hasn't done anything. He's out of options. So this is his last chance audition to show if his future, and he remains in the Braves' plans going forward. Once the waiver wire May 2nd, when the rosters go down from 28 to 26, I imagine that Newcomb will probably be among those cuts. I just don't see him being able to impress that much and that effectively. But Ralph, top to bottom, this bullpen's good. One of the biggest things I like about it is that, yes, Kenley Jansen is going to be the de facto closer. Right. But you also have so many guys back there that have closing experience and can do it. And we'll just name them off. And I got a list right here of the relievers I named, the 9 guys. Kenley Jansen, Colin McHugh can close. Tyler Matzik, we know he can close. He hasn't done a lot, but I'm sure he can. Will Smith, A.J. Minter, Luke Jackson, and even to an extent, in a weird scenario, Darren O'Day might. Ralph, that's 7 of the 9 guys that I listed. We'll go more 6 of the 9 that all have closing experience and can do it. That means for me that Brian Snitker's going to have a lot of options going forward with what he can do. He doesn't have to use Will Smith 3 days in a row. He can really mix and match, like honestly, probably, Ralph, he never has been able to before with this bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, this is last year, obviously, the Braves were able to have Will Smith a closer, and he had ups and downs all year, and that was your number one closer, and Bryce Snicker went with it all year long, putting that full trust in him, and obviously it worked out toward the end of the season when he was just dominant through the playoffs. But with having Jansen, you don't have to worry about having 3 right-handed hitters come up with Will Smith on the mound. You have Jansen who come in and, you might have 2 lefties in the lineup coming up, and you have Will Smith or Matzik. You can play around with a few things. And this is what I think that Brian Snicker really wanted to happen for this, or what Alex and Thobos wanted to happen for this roster, was to give options for this bullpen instead of just throwing the same guys out there in the same situation. So, your 6th inning could be Matzik, your 7th inning could be Jack or Minter, then Luke Jackson, and close it with Will Smith. Now you can turn it around, flip it around a little bit, let it play with it. Maybe Tyler Matzik could be the setup man. Maybe Will Smith could be the setup man one night. You never know. So that's what I think this bullpen is. They're called the night shift for a reason. They're going to be dominant all year long. I know people are going to argue this, and if you're not a Braves fan, I don't want to hear it. This is the best bullpen in baseball, and you cannot sit there and tell me it's not.
The numbers don't lie. What these guys have done, the track record they've had. And Ralph, one of the big things you talked about in mix and match, one of the worries last year in the playoffs is we knew we had the big 3 to go to, Jackson, Smith, and Matzik. But the worry was if you saw them too much, eventually they might start to hit them. That never really occurred. Jackson had a few hiccups. Will Smith was dominant in the postseason. But I think this kind of gives you some more insurance to work with. So I think pitching's in good hands. When we come back, we're going to talk about an offense, Ralph, that I think is going to be better than what we've seen in years prior. It's a fun time to be a Braves fan for sure.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Ralph, the offense is unbelievable for what this team has. I'm excited to see it. Let's go ahead and dive into it once again here in the Crowded Booth. If you're watching, you're listening, make sure to hit that sub button. So we're talking Atlanta Braves, our opening day roster projections. Now, we're going to act under the assumption, Ralph, that Ronald Acuna Jr. is not going to be healthy enough to go day one. They said that he could potentially DH until he gets more comfortable. We're just going to throw that out. So that's that. Right. The first person that doesn't watch this entire video, Ralph, says, "Where's Ronald Acuna Jr.?" Well, we're telling you why we don't have him right here. Let's start off, Ralph, with the infielders. First baseman, we know where that's going. Matt Olson, we know where that's going. Second baseman, Ozzy Albies. We're good with that. Third baseman,
we know who the infield is going to be. To start off the season.
Might be the best infield in baseball. Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson. Okay, outfield. Now, this is where things can get kind of tricky, okay? Right. And then I want to know your lineup after this. I think on opening day, we're going to see Marcell Ozuna in left. Just because when Acuna comes back, Ozuna's going to shift to that full-time DH. In center field, I think we're going to see Adam Duvall with Guillermo Heredia get some spot starts in center field, maybe a late-game inning replacement that we've seen a lot of. In right field, I think we're going to see Eddie Rosario, and that means that I think our fifth outfielder is probably going to be Alex Dickerson, a guy that they signed, former Padre, former Giant, hasn't impressed well, but he's a good bat bench. Make sure you say that word correctly, Ralph. Remember, YouTube might not care, the radio does care. But Alex Dickerson in that opportunity. Now let's get to utility infielders. My two, I've got Orlando Arcia, who showed ability to play essentially everywhere, and then Brock Holt, who we're big MLB The Show guys. We know he can play everywhere. Ralph, I'll stick with you right there. That's 6 infielders, 5 outfielders. How do you feel about that? Are we good to move on and go to the lineup?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so Alex Dickerson was a kind of a curveball for me at the beginning. From when we first signed him, I was like, well, we may see him play later on the season or midsummer when, just because someone's struggling. But he's, turned out to be kind of a good fit for the Braves here for a DH spot. Just a feeling because he can take over in the outfield for some days for Ozuna to get off some time. And Guillermo, obviously, I think Guillermo should start center field, honestly. That's just my opinion. I think his defense ability steps up and brings in a huge, in play for this team because you don't lose a bat this year with Guillermo because you have a DH this year. So instead of last year, Guillermo starting, you lose his bat because it's not as good as Acuna or Zuna's at the time, but his defense ability is incredible, so that keeps him up mid-season or all season long. But, having Ozuna, Dickerson, and Duvall and Rosario in your outfield, that's a hard line to beat or hard outfit to beat right there, honestly, this season.
And I like what you were saying there. It takes in the lineup. Meanwhile, Alex Dickerson's a career 260 hitter, left-handed bat off the bench. So let's get into lineup. My lineup is, Ralph, I'm going to start off. Number 1 hitter is Eddie Rosario playing right field. Are you good with that? You good with that?
Yeah, so that's who I have in mind.
Okay, so we're going to start right there with that. Now, in the 2-hole hitter thing, you can go to a lot of different ways here. We saw Freddie who? I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. We saw him fill that gap as a 2-hole hitter. My idea of this, Ralph, is I think that they're going to go put Matt Olson in a 3-hole with potentially Austin Riley in the 4-hole. I love that combination of lefty-righty power. So my 2-hole hitter is going to be Ozzy Albies. I like Ozzy's switch hit abilities at the top of the lineup. I think when we see Acuna come back, some things could change with that. Ozzy could be pushed down into an more RBI run-producing opportunity. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. You give me 1 through 4 for you. I'm going Rosario, Albies, Olson, Riley.
I mean, that's who I have.
Perfect. It's like we didn't talk about this before.
No, I know. And the only change I would have maybe is, if certain days maybe put Olson at 2 spot and have maybe Ozuna at 3 and then go Riley at 4. Just have a lot of power. I know there's a lot of power up front, obviously, but this lineup's good. This lineup's deep this year. It's not a top heavy lineup. The first 4 batters are the best guys on the team. You still have Travis d'Arnaud, Duvall, and Dansby, who's turning into a great hitter in the past 2 years. So I'm okay with having that much power at the top of the lineup, but then again, you're able to divide it up a little bit this year.
Mm-hmm. So we went 1 through 4. We got Rosario, Albies, Olsen, Riley. Ralph, my 5-hole hitter is going to be the left fielder Marcell Ozuna in this situation. And actually, I'm going to put Marcell, I'm going to pencil him as the DH. I'm going to give Marcell the early DH in the situation, the 5-hole. And I'll just go ahead and through. Batting 6, I'm going to have the left fielder, Adam Duvall. And then 7th, I'm going to go with Dansby Swanson, who's going to be our shortstop. 8th, I'm going to go with Travis d'Arnaud. And then 9-hole, I'm going to go with center fielder Guillermo Heredia. I think Heredia, and that could switch up. We could see Heredia hit. We could also see, depending on lefty-righty matchup, Alex Dickerson could get the start. But I think 1 through 9 for me, I have Rosario, Albies, Olsen, Riley. I've got this written down. Ozuna, Duvall, Swanson, d'Arnaud, Heredia. You go with that? How you feel about that?
Yeah, that's about what I have on mine. Only change I have is mine is I have actually Dansby hitting 6th for some or 5th for some reason, just because I want a little bit more speed in that middle part of the lineup because you don't have much with. I mean, Duvall's not slow.
He's not slow,
very good,
but he's not Dansby. Yeah,
he's also a very terrible base runner. He's horrible base running. I'll admit it. I'm okay to say that now. We saw how bad it was this past season. So that's the only switch I have is probably have Swanson at 6 and then Duvall at 7. Swanson get on base and then Duvall's able to put him send him home. Obviously, I think Duvall needs to be in that RBI spot. I think he does every year. He contributes extremely well. He may not hit 300, but he's going to hit about 250 and have 100 RBIs and about 40 home runs. So I'm okay with that.
Adam Duvall has the pop for sure. We're going to take a quick break. Then Ralph's going to give you his breakout pitcher. I'll give you mine, and then breakout hitter as we get ready for the 2022 season of your world champion Atlanta Braves.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell. Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
All right, Ralph, we're back here. So no pressure. I need you to do well here, okay? You all right? You got that?
I'm okay.
Let's roll here. Who you got your breakout pitcher for 2022 for the Atlanta Braves?
Well, we already talked about it a minute ago. I think it's Huascar Noah. I think this is a bounce back season for him. I think this is for him to. I think it was kind of starting up last year with the injury, it slowed it down obviously, but he's set for a good comeback this year. I feel like this is something that I want to see is how dominant he was mid-season. For that, that's how I want him to start out this season and continue to get better throughout the year.
I like that a lot. I mean, what he's done, what he's built, he's already has kind of that ability. He was well on his way to a breakout season. He had a breakout period last year. Ralph, I wanted to go Kyle Wright because I want to see the kid succeed. We've seen what he's done. I think he's going to be good. My breakout candidate is going to be Spencer Strider. I just love what this guy possesses. I think eventually he's going to be a starter. But right now, Ralph, when he has an effective average velocity, okay, now this is a stat. Now, I didn't know this was a stat. There's average velocity, but there's effective average velocity, okay? That means percentage. This is what's officially thrown for a strike. It's an effective pitch. Either a guy fouls it off, gets jammed. It's all this stuff, analytics. Spencer Strider's effective average velocity, Ralph, is 99.2 miles an hour. That means he can throw the ball at an average of that and be effective. Not that he's all over the place. That's what he's been able to do. Now, that's against minor league pitching. He had a little cup of coffee towards the end of the season. But he has an above-average slider, according to a lot of pundits already. That two-pitch mix is devastating as a reliever. I think he's going to make a name in an already crowded bullpen. This is, Ralph, this is a bullpen that's not going to provide too many opportunities to unproven guys. But in a bullpen, we talked about it. It can be a revolving door. That's why I've got Spencer Strider being one of those guys. But I think if you talked about Strider, Noah, Mueller, Davidson, Wright, any of those guys, they could all be put in that conversation. Let's go now to the lineup. Who are you rolling with? Who's your breakout candidate for 2022?
Oh, man.
They're all so good.
I know, and it's hard to say someone's going to be a breakout player when they were insanely good last year. I mean, I think last year I said Austin Riley was a breakout player for the beginning of the season.
I want to say you did.
And I can't say him again because he was so good last year, and it's not a breakout anymore. It's kind of like I'm back. I'm here. This is me getting better every year. I guess I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna go Rosario.
You think he sustains the postseason run? That's what you're going with?
What he did in the postseason was so good that he can come back and do it again. I think he contributes to that every single day and makes him a everyday starter for the Braves to play 160 games, maybe 155 games this year, and be a guy the Braves can count on at that leadoff spot until Acuna gets back, and still add pop at the bat wherever he's on the lineup. Because when Acuna gets back, you're talking about a lineup that's deadly. I mean, just filthy, honestly.
Oh yeah. I like that. And if he before the injury, when he was with Minnesota and then he went to Cleveland, he's shown the ability to have power and do all these things. But if he can do it over the course of a season, that's really, really dangerous. Ralph, I'm going to go with a guy, Austin Riley was the big one last year. I've got one that, it's going to be an interesting year for this guy because it's a contract year. And I'm going with Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
Swanson to me, and I want to say this, Dansby Swanson to me is another player that's already an established big leaguer. He led all the shortstops during the shortened season back in 2020 in B-WAR. He followed up with hitting 27 homers last season. But I feel like we're all still waiting for the year that he puts it all together over a course of a 162-game campaign. And throughout his career, Swanson's been hot and cold. But and there's a chance, really, guys, that that's just who he is. But I think that the best baseball remains ahead of Dansby Swanson. I think he takes a step in leadership, and we see that on the field as well. I think that he's a guy, and Ralph, I know we're not big WAR guys. He could post a 4 or 5+ WAR this season because he has the propensity to do that. He's got the God-given talent. He's got that potential. I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Dansby's production last year was outstanding, honestly, in my opinion. I think his RBIs are going to go up more every year. I feel like it's gone up every single year. I'm looking at the stats right now. From 2019, he had 65 RBIs, and that was a career high at the time. He had played 127 games. 2020, obviously played 60 games, still had a solid year. 2021, though, plays 160 games. That's most games he ever played in his career. 88 RBIs, what you said, 27 home runs. He walked more than he ever has in his career. I feel like he's getting better. His swing's gotten a ton better. I mean, he had 20 more hits than he has any time in his career, and that's incredible for him. I think, like we said, it's his contract year. He needs to show out if he wants to be, the next big contract shortstop in baseball. He's not going to be the number one paid shortstop. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think he knows that because he's not hitting 30+ home runs. He's not having 100+ RBIs. But he's, to me, and I'll say it, is the best defensive shortstop in baseball. I think his defense shows for itself how great he is. He's consistent on the field. He's a clutch player on the team. I think we saw him have a walk-off this past year. So I think Dansby Swanson is just exactly what the Braves want to have, and I hope his breakout is this year because I want to re-sign him next year.